Let's start the second section this morning, and I guess we are very happy to have our host, the director of the CFT, Chong-Sun Chu, who is going to give a talk on the aspect of ADS via CFT correspondence.
Thank you. I would like to talk about some aspect of this ADS homomorphic theory correspondence. It was a proposal in this paper this year with equal stock between three dynamics. And then we have then since then work on two more papers with So in this talk I will tell you about this the motivation and the statement, and then the application so far we have done on this correspondence, and then some discussion. Of course, quantum field theory or the main motivation for this duality is to try to understand non-perturbability effect of quantum field theory in curved space-time. There's a lot of different places where this homomorphic field theory curved space-time is important. For example, in inflation, it's about quantum field theory in zeta space-time. And particularly there's a effect which is due to infrared divergences. And this infrared divergences of scalar field is the background lead to a time-dependent secular, long-time secular effect, which is so far people have invented different techniques to deal with this, like stochastic equation or dynamical minimization equation. It will be nice to have other more complete understanding. Those are proposed equations anyway, approximation. So it would be nice to have some quantum field theory set up, perturbability set up to understand this kind of phenomenon. So that's one motivation to use holography. But this is in fact not new to study phase gravity duality involving physical space. There has been some study in I think around 2009. There's a lot of paper already on that kind of duality. There's no point for me to list all the references here. But anyway, one thing in common in those analyses is that the duality has been considered in a somewhat generic sense without specifying the precise string theory or the precise phase theory. So it would be interesting to have a more concrete setup to ask a more precise and analytical question. So in this I will try to explain this proposal, which is about the first one is just about F2B string on ADS by SY, and then which is zero to any force to homomorphic arguments on the zeta form. So it's the same. You can say it's the same F2B string string theory of the center with a different condition. With that different boundary condition, that string theory is still a different homomorphic theory. Let me start with explaining about this idea of slicing. The ADS we are familiar with can be defined by embedding, most simply by embedding this two-dimensional Minkowskian space with two time directions. This define ADS space with a cosmological constant like this. And you can see very easily that this ADS is an isometry group which is SO2 common peak. The zeta space is similar, can be defined by embedding with one time in this case. And it's isometric under this SO1 common peak. Both a mobile definition of the space. In the application in duality, for example, in the standard application of the standard duality, a certain embedding has been chosen. So if you choose this parameterization of the embedding coordinate in terms of the capital one, in terms of the small letter one, and you go down to you get this metric. So it's the same metric, but now we use on a other surface on this ADS space, then you get this ADS metric. So in particular, you see this metric only describes half of the global ADS space because R has to be either positive or negative because there's a singularity at R equals 0. So we only describe half of the global ADS space. And in fact, it's because of this one can create a boundary for the ADS CFT correspondence. And so the ADS CFT correspondence is characterized by back-to-boundary analysis, since we can GKBW. Yeah. Of course, that's not the only way you can choose a compensation of the embedding coordinate. You can also take this one, for example. So one of them you take a cos, and the other one you take a sin, and then you put the y here, where y satisfies the embedding equation for the digital space. Then you can easily see this satisfies the embedding equation for ADS space. So this defines a certain slicing for you. In this case, a constant z section is given by a digital space. So this is called digital slicing. Again, this describes another half, not another half, a different half of the global ADS space. So our proposal is to try to formulate a duality in terms of this slicing of the ADS space instead of the standard one. In this way, you will be able to have a digital conformal theory on the boundary. So to be more specific, explicit, let me also specify the embedding coordinate for the y. And for example, if you choose this particular parameterization here, then you get this well-known like FRW metric. You can also choose a conformal time, then you get a conformal. You get this representation, which is the conformal scaling of the Minkowski metric. One thing important is that to notice is that the ADS5 phosphorial constant and the digital phosphorial constant are related. So it's like half of the ADS1. About the boundary side. So suppose you have this geometry. As I said, you expect the boundary theory to be a digital conformal to be in particular, now if we are talking about type 2D string theory on this particular background, then we have 32 supersymmetry in the bulk. So we expect the boundary theory to be also supersymmetric. But then immediately there's a crash, because it's well known that on this digital space you cannot have supersymmetry, at least not a simple supersymmetry. So supersymmetry are parameterized by parameter solving the Killing-Spinner equation. And this Killing-Spinner equation has no real solution because of this I here. Because of this, then you cannot have a Majorana spinner, which is necessary to have a simple supersymmetry. On the other hand, it's realized also that if you relax the condition and consider instead conformal killing spinner, then this equation has real solution. The solution here basically a double. If you solve this equation, you get a solution which has both real and like this. Not really, but this equation here, this solution here, is compatible with the Majorana condition imposed on which is like reality condition. So it's like this is like complex standard spinner with parameters by 8 spinner, 8 Majorana spinner. So it's like a real part imaginary part. I tried to avoid saying real imaginary, but basically it's like this. So you have 2 4-component Majorana spinner describing the conformal supersymmetry. So each conformal supersymmetry corresponds to apart from this defector, corresponds to like a Poincare supersymmetry and a Poincare conformal supersymmetry. But it's now combined together in this case. And so for the n to the 4 case, at the n to the 4 superconformal YAMUs on digital space, you will have a 32 n to the 4 YAMUs on flat space. This is a construction, very simple, in fact, but first done by this group of people. So you take a gauge potential, 4 Majorana spinner, and 6 real scalar, all in the same representation of the gauge group, let's say SUM, and you write down this Lagrangian here. And this Lagrangian, there are some details here using these indicators. But these are just exactly like the standard A4 construction. The difference here is that the major difference here is that there's a mass term which is due to the fact that we have in a curved space, so you need this mask term, conformal mask term there, in order to be conformal maskless in the digital space. Yeah.
Algebra is bigger than the X space one.
Yeah.
But you still have the same number of key genes. How is that possible?
No, but this is just like in the before the usual case.
So the supersymmetry algebra has the same dimension as the X.
Yeah.
X space.
You're asking about the balance of fermion and boson component? But this component is not
extra. If you relax the condition to conformal, and therefore
we usually don't count in this way. I mean, you count this way, you have an auxiliary field, and then I think you probably are thinking about super field, and then you expand into theta, and then you get a number of components. But this is like the one which is already eliminating all the auxiliary field. It's on shell.
Because you have more spinors, so you have more supersymmetry transformations.
Yeah. No. Yeah. But you can see the supersymmetry transformation here. So you don't need to have. I mean, like just like what I say in the flat case, you have there's also an equal superconformal symmetry. You don't need more spin fermion there to represent this. They just rotate different in the X. So for example, you can see these are some the supersymmetry transformation, including the superconformal transformation. Yeah, and then the parameter is now the SU4 quartet of the conformal units. There are two interesting questions you can ask at this point. This theory classically has a big amount of superconformal symmetry. So one can expect that this theory will be UV and IR finite because of the large amount of superconformal symmetry. It will be interesting to check that also. Another thing is if you get a theta term, which is simple, I didn't write it down there. And you can also ask the question whether this theory is SL2C strongly duality like the component only duality. So in fact, if the duality statement which I wrote down earlier holds, this would be the case. Right? So we're also working on that question with Louis. So this is a more complete statement. So the same duality, but now I specify the parameter here. So the first two are these are the same. It's just now the exponential quantity, which is different related to the de Sitter or de Sitter radius. This map can be justified by quantity analysis, like the standard case. You put a d ring, and then you take the horizon limit, and then you get a Yang pop out from the quantity field. So you can relate Yang coupling and string coupling and this kind of thing. So what can we do? First, let's have a look at the symmetry of the field. So as we said, the de Sitter space can be embedded from the construct from the embedded coordinate. So the isometry on the de Sitter space can be most easily constructed from the ambient space using just the angular momentum operator. Because this gives the constraint invariant. So when you substitute the de Sitter representation of the slicing, and you get this isometry. So you get free rotation, one scaling, and then free translation, and one superconformal, free superconformal transformation. So we don't have, like in that case, usually we say we have boost, we have rotation, we have translation, right? And we have superconformal transformation. Now it's different. In fact, the boost, so we have the 10 isometry, and then we have also 5 conformal symmetry. The free Lorentz boost is a conformal symmetry. If you apply this transformation, the Lorentz boost, on the de Sitter metric, you get a scaling of the metric, conformal transformation. And the time translation and the special conformal transformation. So the symmetry which we are used to for the N to the force that case is now discovered. So if you have a Minkowski boundary, the 15 isometry of ADS5 is composed in this way. You have 10 Poincare symmetry, 6 of which are Lorentz and force translation, and then 4 special conformal and 1 limitation. Now with the de Sitter boundary, you have 3 rotation, 3 translation, 3 special conformal, and 1 limitation. Notice the rotation actually now is isometry, not a conformal symmetry. And then you have both special conformal and type translation, and they generate conformal transformation. Anyway, so using the different algebra, you can still use that to constrain the form of the original function in your theory. So for example, if you consider 2 scalar operator with scalar dimension delta, and this is what you get from the constraint. Very similar. Except the sigma here now is replaced by the de Sitter geodesic distance, not the that one, not the de Sitter one, as expected. Yeah. So for spinor operator, then you get, in addition to this balance dimension, you also get the spinor representation, which is this. So you can also work out the constraint on 3 or higher point function with the theory. So as a very first step, we just check. We would like to check whether we can reproduce this using the duality. So basically, we have to develop the boundary formalism, which is very simple in fact. So which is very simple, but actually not done explicitly in the literature. So we just did it. But it's very simple, nothing really new. So we consider a metric as of a general form with a boundary metric, and then with some effector which depend on the size position. And suppose you have this is just a separate notation. So you have a scalar field with a boundary propagator. So this is a boundary metric, and boundary propagator which satisfies some differential equation with boundary condition. And it's very easy to get the two-part function using this form. So you can just get the two-part function in terms of the boundary data like P or K, and then F here. F that is basically specify the asymptotic behavior of your scalar field via the boundary. So this formula, of course, are well known in the ADS5, standard ADS5 context. You just write it down in more general context, but nothing new. Yeah. In the fermion case, the fermion is a bit different, but similar actually. Yeah, but slightly different from the scalar, because the fermion equation of motion, the fermion action is first order. So if you substitute on shell, then something like that. So you need to have this boundary action. It's well known back to this work in the beginning of ADS CFT. So using this, then you can derive the two-one function in terms of the boundary propagator for fermion. So again, then you have some boundary property in this formula. So what is not already in the literature is that we can actually one can prove that the S, the boundary propagator in this case, when you all you need here is the boundary behavior of the boundary propagator S. So you can relate that to the boundary propagator for the scalar using this the dual operator. So using that, then you can also get the function. So the only thing which is left is to compute the boundary propagator. So you can either solve the differential equation with the boundary condition, or you can there's some way you can relate that to some limit of the buck-to-buck propagator, which is again very simple. It's actually expected. The buck-to-buck, and one point to the bound, you can get the buck-to-boundary propagator, more or less like that. So you can do that. Then the G is well known. It's just given by some type of differential function. So you can use that, and eventually we confirm everything as expected on homologue field. So this is a very simple exercise we did in the beginning. Now let's do a slightly more longitudinal, more longitudinal question about the temperature of de Sitter conformal fluid theory. So in general, de Sitter conformal fluid theory has a temperature, and this can be seen in many different ways. Suppose, for example, if you consider a static coordinate, then there's a horizon, and r equal to 1 over h. That horizon will give you Hawking radiation, and then create this temperature. That's one way. You can also look at this and then do some with rotation, and then you can see there's some conical defect there, and then as you make the time coordinate rotate, and then get a temperature also. So there are many different ways. But the most important message is that the temperature is in fact independent of the choice of coordinate. That can be established easily. So that's all these are about quantum field theory. What about horography? So in terms of horography, in fact, there's a work by these people. They have already analyzed this. So consider a boundary de Sitter field theory. Using in this setup with this de Sitter slicing of radius phi. So and in the bulk you have a metric like this plus the dz squared. Right? So in the bulk you also have a horizon. So this horizon of the de Sitter space, which is a cosmological horizon, in fact act very similarly to the ADS black hole horizon. And in the sense that if you consider, for example, QQ bar potential, you want to understand how the temperature affects the QQ bar potential. And usually, we have seen this picture many times, I think. You have something like this, but then if you have black hole here, and at some point this may stop here, then this provide okay. Okay. Yeah. So this is a connected string, and then you have also this connected string solution, which end on the black hole. So this gives you an infrared cutoff of the energy contribution to this system, which depend on the size of the black hole, so this is temperature dependent. It's very similar in the de Sitter case. You have also have a horizon. So that has been reproduced the temperature in this de Sitter field theory using the static coordinate. In our proposal of this ADS phi de Sitter ADS correspondence, is somewhat actually important to use the planar coordinate. The reason is because in the planar coordinate, you have the space is homogeneous, and in this coordinate you can easily, I think it's the only coordinate you can actually write down the quantum field theory, and then honestly quantize the quantum field theory. So we would like to understand the origin of temperature for the de Sitter quantum field theory in the FRW coordinate, for example. This coordinate I wrote down earlier, which also where the super Yagyu were made. So, but on the other hand, in the planar coordinate, we don't have horizon. This is just an expansion of the universe. So it's somehow, at least to us, it's puzzling how the temperature may arise from horography. So we just did it, and we consider two quarks on the boundary. So unlike the center case where the quarks are static, we now decided to give them a speed, give them a boost. And the reason why we give them a speed is because the universe is actually expanding. So we give them some speed towards each other to counter against the expansion of the universe, so that they actually have constant distance between them. So we want to study the static quark, or the anti-quark potential between two quarks with a certain distance. And this distance we want to be fixed as L. That's why we add a velocity. Okay. So these are the solutions. So this basically here is the boundary. Yeah. So you put two quarks here. You have a solution like this. Actually, this consists of two curves, but the two curves are too close to each other, so you cannot see. But in general, given the entry port configuration, you always have two minimal surface of the string. One is go deep like this, and then the one go even deeper, but deform more due to the expansion. So you have the whole string is expanding. So this one which goes deeper, the blue one, deform more as it goes deeper. So you have degenerates. You have two solutions. One of them has less area or less energy. So that's the one which dominates the solution. That's the one we should. As usual, if you compute the energy of this or action, the mathematical action of this minimal surface, then you get infinity because of this UV region. So we have to subtract it. So to subtract it, we have to find the disconnected string solution like this one, right? So so it's not difficult to find. So we find this. So there's another one going that way. So let's say this one going infinity. Yeah. Now the interesting thing here is that this string actually, except for this point, which is in addition to the end point, every point on the string is actually moving velocity, right? So in fact, the deeper you go down, the higher is the speed. So at some point, the speed will be higher than the speed of light. So it's no longer causally connected to the point of the boundary. The relative speed between the two points is more than the speed of light. So it's no longer causally connected. So you do the subtraction, like a black hole here. Of course, there's a part of the string is going into the black hole, but you drop it, you cut it. You only take into this part, because only this part is seen by the observer at the boundary. So here we also have to do this. We cut off at the point where the string moves at the speed of light, where the boundary. Then and give a cutoff. There. That's the infrared cutoff. Basically, it's right here. So again, this cutoff depends on H, so depends on the temperature. So that's how basically this is the mechanism how the cubic bar potential feel the temperature holographically. So we implement this procedure, and then here's the plot of the energy against the separation of the two parts. So for different H. So this is a smaller, this is a bigger H. This is smaller H. Yeah. So in both cases, there's a maximal distance where you can the two parts can be separated. More than that, then they will not be stable, and then they disassociate basically. So this is actually very similar to the ATS black hole situation. So we have also analyzed predicting meson in the digital space with similar results. So now finally, I think this is the place. I start with the motivation to say the strongest motivation is to study quantum effect of digital of quantum field theory. So let's actually do something, do some calculation about the digital quantum field theory. As we know, the quantum field theory has diagonals. It's not surprising, right? So we need to have a consistent framework to do the computation in this conformally flat space-time. So in the context of quantum field theory in curved space-time, there's a lot of different vectorization scheme has been developed. For example, like dimensional vectorization, or Dirichlet finger, or zeta function vectorization, or vectorization scheme. Among all this, so each of them has some particular application in mind, and has different applicational situation where they are good for. So, for example, Dirichlet finger is developed for general metric, but it's only for very short distance. So, if you want to compute more than just capturing the UV dimensions, then it will not be very good. So, in this case, we decided to use a didactic, which is actually particularly useful in the case for this conformally flat metric, because it has taken into account the full advantage of the homogeneity of the space. So you will see in the next 5 minutes what I mean. So in the literature, the diabetic vectorization scheme for scalar field or fermion field has been constructed. So in 74, first for scalar, and then somehow it took 40 years, I don't know why, so long, to have this fermion constructed. But in fact, to our surprise, the gauge field has never been considered in the diabetic scheme. So we did it. So we basically construct the scheme for the gauge field, and then we use that to compute two things. We have computed the performance anomaly using this scheme, and then of course, not surprisingly, we agree with everything else. So, but still anyway, it agrees with the holographic computation. So it's just a small check that this formula sum is working at least. Another thing is that we also compute the one beta function is vanishing. So it, again, agree with what our expectation. But of course, the challenge will be higher, so we haven't done that. Okay, let's just explain a little bit about what the diabetic vectorization means. You consider this metric, which is basically just a Minkowski but with a scale vector in front. That's what I mean, conformally flat. And a scalar field, conformally coupled. We put a mask there because a lot of things will be divergent. In the diabetic vectorization scheme, we put a mask to regulate the divergence. And then we take mask less limit in the end of the calculation. This mask will capture the effect of gravitational field. Yeah. So if you consider this, the metric is homogeneous over time. That's, so this equation can be solved very easily, and you get a basically just a Fourier expansion with a time-dependent oscillator. So the dispersion relation for the oscillator is has picked up a time-dependent part. So you may say, okay, I think m equals 0 anyway, so why can't I? But it turns out when you calculate the divergences, and you take m equals 0 there, but then you will this effect does not go away in the end. That's how you get an anomaly. How do we solve that equation? It's actually there's no systematic way, or there's no known way to get a closed form solution of this equation. It's just a complicated differential equation. But there's a systematic way to solve it predictably. So you imagine if the space-time is slowly changing. So if C is a constant, then of course we know how to solve this. It's just a oscillator with constant frequency. So if you assume C is slowly changing, so you assume C as an expansion in terms of derivative, and you can develop a scheme to solve that. So it's very similar to quantum mechanics. We have a WKB approximation. If a constant potential, you can solve it. But then changing potential, then you assume the potential is not changing very rapidly, then you can develop a WKB expansion. So here you can have a WKB type expansion for a solution. So this is a solution with W satisfied this differential equation. Now this differential equation can be has a leading term over here without derivative, and then this correction term has a two derivative. So you can, as I said, we can expand the background to be slowly changing, and then expand this diabetically. Then you get a solution in terms of a diabetic parameter, which is epsilon, which is basically kind of the number of derivative, time derivative. So the leading one is omega, and then you have two derivative, and then you have four derivative, which I skip here. Using that, and one can, for example, compute the energy, renormalize energy momentum tensor. Of course, it can be done, and then you agree with all the other methods, like degree stringer or zeta function vectorization. So fermion, a similar story can be repeated, but it's slightly more complicated because the fermion mole function actually obey a different, still obey some time-dependent oscillator equation, but there's some normalization condition which is more complicated because you have two components, fermion wave function, and they're coupled basically. So, but that can be done. So by other people, 2 years ago. For gauge field, there's also for gauge field, of course, you have in relation to the polarization, like fermion. You also have another complication with gauge fixing. But anyway, that can also be done. But due to the time, I'm not able to explain it here. So I just refer you to our paper. Now the formula sum is available. So using that, as I said, we can compute the complete conformal anomaly contribution, including the gauge field, using the didactic vectorization, and then we find a metric with the orthogonal method. And also we have computed the one-loop data function and its values. So this is the last thing. So we think to use well, to study more about, for example, the superconformal symmetry is a field. For example, if there's any normalization theorem, like Cairo operator, stuff like it. Basically, we're going to set that about this superconformal field theory. And I said this superconformal field theory, we expect it to have exact conformality, strong duality, and also integrability. Integrability is a bit more, well, take a bit. Well, actually, it doesn't take much thinking, but you can see it here. The reason why we expect integrability is because in the ADS5 S5 side, of course, the integrability in the standard ADS5 S5 was the first. You need people first conceive about that possibility because of BMN, which compute some marginally conformal operator, and then find the dimension can be computed and actually matched with some integrable system. But then later it was realized that in the string size, string sigma model also have some kind of integrability, last pair integrability. And that construction of a last pair actually doesn't rely on any local coordinate system. You just use the global ADS5 and global representation of the sphere, like the constraint I wrote down. And so the same would apply to this slicing of ADS5. And so we expect, or we speculate, that the angular superconformal YAMU may also have also be integrable. But the question is, which operator is supposed to be integrable? Is it just a dilatation operator, or dilatation operator modified with something else, which we don't know. So to answer this question, of course, we will go back to the elementary computation, like doing the one loop BMN like computation. But that can be done easily using now our formulas. So I hope to have more things to report later. Thank you.
Any quick question for Chong-Sun?
So can you do also for the Lorentzian operator? Because they the beta horizon, so probably they can choose the boundary condition interaction. Get the Lorentzian.
Lorentzian.
Yes, probably just get the Euclidean 2-point function.
Oh no, we are these are Lorentzian.
These are Lorentzian.
Lorentzian.
And you talk about it.
Geometric distance there, real geometric distance of this.
And
if you make it Lorentzian, it will become ADS1. There's no difference between it or ADS4.
If I understand, quantum field on the space also long standing problem.
Yeah.
So my question, when you construct propagators, do you keep the register invariance or do you make the register invariance?
Fortunately, here the subtlety you refer to massless minimally coupled shape mode. Now all these are massless conformally coupled. So those kind of subtlety doesn't arise here. So all these are this explicit visitor similarity survey.
If I understand correctly, the only difference when it goes to the case is the slicing of observers, right?
Yeah.
So does it mean that any observable in the usually equals n equals 4 would have be matched to some, something easy in one to complicate the other one?
So I think so. Yeah, every time I give this talk, people always ask the same question. So now we have two slicing. So you can begin to use a buffer boundary to relate the Minkowski to the block, and then go back to the other view. So we expect there will be some duality, but we haven't been able to explicitly write down what type of statement. Yeah.
I actually have an even more basic question. Is that so? The fact you have supersymmetry on this space is to do with supercomponents, and we have this conformal killing spinner.
Yeah.
So can I actually see this equation arises from any kind of DBA action of a DC frame of some appropriate manifold? Then basically, can you rehearse? Can you redo the model syntax originally coupling out?
I think you are saying maybe the kappa symmetry. Some kappa symmetric brain, and then later you can.
Right.
We only did the Boltzmann analysis, of course, to get this map. But I think this will be it should be possible.
Then you should be able to see a near horizon of this particular race to see the ADS.
Kind of on the kappa symmetric age effect of the equivalence.
There are no further questions.